Welcome to Shawn and Carter have a podcast. My name is Shawn.
And I'm Carter.
And Carter, I am a level 14 Jedi Knight now.
Ding!
Ding.
That's exciting for you.
It is exciting. I really liked WoW for a long time, so getting to play some Star Wars for free for a couple days is a nice little treat.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are you gonna spring for it?
I want to so hard.
So I guess it's a two-pronged question. One, is it worth paying for? And two, do you have the time to do it?
I wish the initial asking price was a little less.
What is it?
It is, well, currently it is $50 for the game, and that includes your first 30 days. But it is, after this weekend, and normally $60 for the same thing. And then after that, it's $15 a month, which is the same as Warcraft.
That sounds about, I mean, like, games these days, they're like $60.
Yeah, I don't think that is unfair. I just don't know. With the amount of, I mean, I'm looking at it as that is almost 3 months subscription worth to play the first month. So
that's true.
Is it worth it? And how long am I going to continue to play it to try and like even out my average a little bit?
Right. I mean, like, over the course of a year, I mean, if you just played it for a year, that's almost $250.
Yeah,
for that
and that's
game.
pretty much what I did with WoW, and that's pretty much what I did. When I started playing it, I was like, if I play this for a year, it will discourage me from playing a lot of other games, which will cut back my costs. So I won't. It's not like I'm going to play this and a dozen other games, because I'll play this and I'll just play this. And that is basically what happened, but that was all I played for almost a year.
That's tough. That's tough.
I will say Star Wars is very engaging.
Yeah?
Whereas WoW always kind of felt like it knew that it was a game, and it's got all these like puns and clever like little things that the Blizzard universe has always had, very self-aware. Star Wars takes itself pretty seriously, and the all of the voiceover for the quests and the dialogue trees, even though they don't have a huge effect on what your character is going to turn out as, they are very engaging, and they do a good job of drawing you in and caring about your character.
I'm just going to make this blanket statement and then think about it and maybe revise and extend my remarks on the next podcast after everyone says I'm wrong. But is it just me, or have the recent, like in the past, I don't know, 10 years, the recent Star Wars games have been pretty high quality just across the board?
I think ever since BioWare got involved, the license got a whole lot of attention with their, weren't they the first the Knights of the Old Republic game?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For the first Xbox. I think
I think that's right.
That was really when the brand took off again. Like the prequels didn't do for the brand what everyone thought they would.
That's totally true.
It took a couple years, and then a couple game companies started coming out with good things like that, and Telltale came out with the Lego Star Wars franchise, which was freaking blockbuster itself. And now we have a good Star Wars MMO, which they have tried Star Wars MMOs before. I think this is the one that will catch.
Yeah, I never played Galaxies, but my impression of it was not great.
It seems like, from what I know of it, it had a lot of balance issues, and if you have balance issues in an MMO, you've got huge problems. Like, that is the problem you don't want to have.
Yeah. Oh my god. So, speaking of the prequels, did you ever play the tie-in game for episode 1?
Yes, I did, and I owned it on PC CD-ROM.
I had it for PlayStation. It was
that like top-down.
It was top-down. Yeah, it was comically bad.
It was like a certain style. It was very arcadey.
That was exactly what I was about to say. Was that it felt like they made it for an arcade game. They don't even
you need a joystick and 2 buttons to go with it.
They don't even do those anymore. And also, when you think about it, that was a very long time ago. That was 1999 was when episode 1 came out. So yeah, we're talking like, I can't do math. What, 13 years ago?
There was
that
also
right?
the Pod Racer game that came out at the same time.
That was not as bad, but it was also not. It was a racing game.
Correct. Correct.
pod 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 racers, pod
Still
whatever.
very arcadey, but for a different reason.
Yeah, exactly.
In
And
fact,
I
I'm
didn't.
sure I played that in an arcade at least once.
I probably did. Yeah, I mean, Star Wars games have had such an interesting history. I mean, like
It's
Dark
like two
Forces.
decades old at this point,
Yeah, I
or
mean,
more.
well, oh my God. So, the Super Nintendo games for Star Wars, Empire and Return of the Jedi, I owned all of those, and I loved them so very much. And they're not great in retrospect, but I mean, they were. I thought they were pretty. I thought they were pretty awesome. Did you ever see these?
Yes, I saw Empire.
Empire was really great. That's probably my favorite of the three. Star Wars was kind of weak. Empire I thought was excellent.
When
And
you were playing those, I was playing X-Wing and TIE Fighter for PC.
yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't do a lot of PC gaming back then when I had a console.
I was all
Which is
about the
reversed.
3D space combat.
I ended up playing those when I was like in middle school. I think I discovered those when I was a little bit older. And they were like, I don't know if they do this anymore, but Target used to have, so they have like a game section, and then like right next to it they would have like a very nondescript section of like $5 PC games.
Oh yeah, I
And
remember
they were
that.
all like they were really either really crappy or old. Like you could go there in like 2005 and they would have like the original Age of Empires for like $4.
They would also there would be a disc of like 25 games that if you wanted to find them online for free, you really could. But here they were for
Yep.
$5 on a CD.
Yep, and I bought a lot of those space fighter games. I think that I
Did you
either
ever
got
play
like a pack of
Descent?
them or- Descent?
That
I
that
don't
was
know.
one
What
of
is it?
those.
Can you describe it?
It was basically it was a space shooter, but your ship was always in interior environments for some reason.
Okay, no, I don't think so.
It had multiple sequels. I'll have to look up that franchise.
It sounds familiar to me. I don't know.
So
If
are you
we
gonna play
ever
this? Are you
mention
gonna play the
video
Old
games-
Republic? Is what I want to know.
If we ever mention video games, we end up doing like a 15-minute tangent on video games. It's
And
like
then
not possible for us.
Miyamoto,
Yeah, like how
Pokemon.
can we get Nintendo back into this? I'm probably not gonna play it now.
not your thing.
Short answer. No. Well, for a lot of I mean, like I'm sure that it doesn't work on a Mac. So I'd have to run it in my little virtual machine, and a lot of times my Windows 7 virtual machine does not like games very much. It has like if you run a 3D game in it, you gotta like you have to like change the VM settings so that it has access to all of the CPU, all of your memory, and it still isn't great. And you gotta turn all the like graphics down. So
Also, you need about I don't know a dozen hours to even get to all the interesting stuff.
Oh really?
Well, sure, you got to get up to at least the level where you can start playing PvP and flashpoints and stuff. So that's minimum investment, like six hours probably.
Yeah, I mean MMOs. Wow, there's never really my thing. So I don't probably not.
Well, there's always the movies, which we'll get there eventually.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We have actual follow-up to do, and not just talking about video games. We got a couple of things we want to cover before we do some random questions and then our main topic. And I'm actually very excited to talk about our main topic this week. I was dun dun dun. I really enjoyed something that came out this week. So anyway, first bit of follow-up is a question from the Yellow Llama, posted on the YouTube video. So the Yellow Llama is going to be taking some college classes before he or she graduates from high school. He or she? I don't know if it's
I don't know either.
he or she.
They.
That is not grammatically correct.
I wrote a paper about that once. Language shift, my friend. One day, it'll be correct.
We can maybe that can be a topic next time.
When we want to lose all of our listeners.
Yeah, instead of having video game tangents, we'll have grammar and language tangents.
Sounds good. I'll get Alicia on.
Great. So the Yellow Llama is going to take some college classes before he or she graduates from high school. Great idea, incidentally. I wish that I had done that when I was in high school. I took a lot of AP classes, which ended up helping me a lot, but smart idea. You're thinking. And he or she wants to know if I have any programs or languages or anything to recommend for graphic design or web design and coding. And specifically, I'd mentioned that Flash is being used less, but like, what in lieu of that, what should he or she study? So I will say, first of all, graphic design is not my bailiwick. I do not know much,
neither.
if anything at all, about graphic design. So I have no advice there, other than whereas I don't think whereas Adobe Flash is just being used less and less on the internet for like video and interactive design. My impression is that Adobe is still very dominant in design. CS5 is a very popular platform for graphic design. So, but I've never used it. I'm not a graphic designer. I don't really have a lot of advice there. And Shawn, you just indicated that you don't as well. So
No, none at all. I know how to dabble in Photoshop. That is the extent of my graphic knowledge.
Yeah, so sorry, I don't have a lot of good advice for you there. But on the web design and coding, there's no better place to start than the fundamentals: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So those will serve you well for all different types of web design issues. And also, if you get into JavaScript, you will start learning how to think like a programmer. So.
Yeah, I took 1 year of C in high school, and just that year gave me enough fundamentals of programming for me to understand a lot of things that people talk about languages that I don't know anything about, just because I understand structures and the way that things are programmed.
Yeah. So, like, if I was just saying, like, oh, general programming, my answer would not, or coding, my answer would definitely not be JavaScript. JavaScript is a very idiosyncratic language, and it's not great. Programming languages generally, they have, there's pros and cons for all of them. If someone came up to me and it's like, hey, I want to get into programming, I want to, like, what's a good place to start? I would say Python is a great place to start, and I think it's a great language. Others, if you're going to do more web development stuff and you want to like get a powerful programming language under your belt, Ruby is also a great place to start. But it's also I do natural language kind of stuff with programming, so Python is really great for me, and Ruby would be less great. So, but for you, Yellow Llama, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, this is probably exactly what you knew already, and I'm just saying it over again. If you're interested in this, you probably already know about these topics. So I learned HTML when I was in high school. It ended up not serving me very well because I don't use it, but if you're going to be going into web design, it's HTML and CSS are good places to start.
I've definitely forgotten more of the HTML knowledge than I still have. I forgot a lot that I used to know.
Yeah. Well, and when I was learning HTML, CSS was not a widely used...
Same, and I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, it was not a web standard when I was learning HTML, because when I was learning HTML, I was 11, so it was like 14 years ago. I ended up having to take care of the design on a website in a previous job, and I had to learn CSS, and it's really interesting and it's great. I wish that I had ended up learning about that, but I don't even know if CSS was around when I was learning HTML5. If it was not a standard at all. So,
what other life advice can we offer people?
Life advice.
We're gonna turn into life advice columnists now.
Yeah, exactly. I need another fortune cookie. I don't have any like I did last week. Speaking of last week, I have some follow-up from last week for Dave specifically. We were talking about iPads, and I mentioned I would recommend buying a black iPad, and you were both like, "What? That's
yeah.
How can you
what
recommend a color?
in the world does it matter, right?"
Right. So I said, well, I said two things. I said, one, I think that the black one gives you a more
I thought to myself, I would have said black simply because it's not going to show all your smudgy fingerprints on it so quickly.
I would it does. I'll just say that it does. The iPad screen attracts. Oh man, it attracts a lot of fingerprints. Although the smart cover does adequately clean it pretty well. It's got the little microfiber thingies. It does work pretty well, except the little areas where there are joints because the pad is not as thick there. Whatever. I said that I thought it would offer a better viewing experience for movies because it letterboxes them, and as opposed to having like big black bars hitting the white, bezel, it would hit a black bezel and it would all look basically the same. But then I also said that my thought that the white iPad would reflect more light up into your eyes and it would make the screen appear dimmer. And that was just sort of like having. I mean, and also I've used a white iPad and I felt that it looked dimmer. So I was trying to like figure out why. So that was my response. I'm like, I think that it's going to reflect more light. So Dave said that he said something, but apparently someone in the comments basically corrected him and said that he was wrong. And I saw that comment, and then I was like, I'm starting to like doubt myself on this like light thing. I don't know if that's right. So I started kind of looking into it a little, and I think that it's true now that the white one will make the screen generally appear dimmer. But the reason why is not necessarily to do with like light reflecting, but it's a psychological effect. If you have a white bezel, the very whitest thing that you'll ever see when you're holding an iPad will be the bezel, which means that psychologically you will, or like part of your cognitive experience of like seeing things on the iPad is that all the other things that are supposed to appear white will look grayer in comparison to the white. Whereas if you have a black one, the only thing that's going to do is make the blacks appear grayer. Because you're never going to get a true white or a true black on this particular screen. So I think that the reason why it appeared dimmer to me is that there's much more white, like on web pages and stuff, there's much more white space than black space when you're using an iPad,
right.
And that you're mentally comparing that to the white bezel, and it seems gray, which makes it like you think it looks dimmer, even though it's not actually dimmer. So I think that's a better response.
So it's all in your head.
But it's all in your head. But I mean,
it's all about
like
your mother.
Experience of... well, you were talking about awake on one of your vlogs. Whatever your experience of reality is your experience of reality. So if it appears dimmer, it's not like, even if it's not, if your experience is that it seems dimmer, then that's still perfectly valid. I'm with the other universe lady, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, before we leave last week's episode behind, Dave mentioned very briefly in passing that he was on a show on TLC. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, it is now in the link dump for last week's episode. The entire episode is there. It's called Geek Love. It follows around these two girls who are at New York Comic Con looking for love in all the right places, I guess. And one of them ends up meeting up with our aforementioned guest, Dave Moulton. And it's kind of weird to see this guy that I know in real life edited on cable.
Check it out. I will admit I have unfortunately not had a chance to see it, but I'm very excited to see it.
It's kind of goofy and embarrassing, but also cute and sweet because it's a show about nerdy people trying to find love.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that a lot of our audience is probably going to find themselves in that.
At a Comic-Con looking for a cosplayer.
I've got an XKCD for this. It's it's hard to describe. So if you're watching this on YouTube specifically, go check out the XKCD that I'm mentioning here. It's pretty funny. Do you know the like cosplay subgenre of furries?
Say furry, yes.
Furries? Okay. Do you know which XKCD I'm talking about?
No, I happen to know what furries are. Mostly from Rooster
Furries
Teeth, also making jokes.
Yes, so furries are people who dress up like animals, like cats or dogs or whatever. I don't know.
And they're furry.
And they're furry, and that's part of their like. This is what they do.
That's their role playing experience.
Exactly. So and some like hardcore furries do this like in their daily life. Like it's not just going to Comic-Con. It's just like they like to dress up like an animal. So there's an XKCD from a while back called Skins, and it's a guy like packing up a suitcase, and someone says like, "Hey, where are you going?" He's like, "Oh, to a convention." And they're like, "What's a convention?" He's like, "Well, you know about furries, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." We're furries whose animal identities have a thing for pretending to be humans. And then it's two people talking to each other, and one of them says like, "How's the weather?" "Great, I've been driving my car and having a job all day." "Did you meow?" "Not even once."
Community just came back on the air this week, and the two weird characters tried to act normal for a whole day, and that's basically the way they ended up coming off as.
Oh boy, I gotta check out Community.
Yeah, I know you do. Apparently it's just like XKCD.
Apparently it's just like but it actually does seem to have some similarities to XKCD. I did Parks and Rec. I'm trying, man.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, anyway, I'm trying.
Ron Swanson
all right,
is proud of you.
God, I love Ron Swanson. Best. Anyway, we got a different Ron to talk about. We got to talk about Ron's random questions. All right, I guess we just have to call them RRQs now because they come from two different R-named people. But we got 3.
Whoa.
You ready? Yeah. It's RRQ heavy episode.
The quality must have been up.
There's really good random questions this week, guys. So Ron asked, he wants to know the origin of the phrase "bigger than a breadbox."
I would like to know that too.
Yes. Then he also asked, "Is it still relevant?" He didn't specify in that follow-up sentence whether the phrase is still relevant or breadboxes generally are still relevant. We can tackle that. And then, have we ever owned a breadbox?
Okay.
So I looked into this.
Well, good, because I don't know what the origin of it is. Other than a breadbox is a thing, and I know what the size of it is.
Right. So, like a lot of these questions where Ron wants to know the origin, it's not clear.
Right? Like someone says something, someone says something else.
Yes. The one thing that I was able to find out, and if you go to the Wikipedia page for Breadbox, it has as a saying. So other people have been interested in this and have taken the time to do research and put it on Wikipedia. Apparently, the phrase was popularized by Steve Allen on the game show What's My Line?
Oh, okay.
And that's where it came into broader popular culture and how it got integrated into 20 Questions because What's My Line and 20 Questions have like similar.
It was like a game show question.
Yes, it was a game show question. It
You
got
need you
integrated
needed
in.
it once you started asking those kind of questions, trivial questions.
Yes. Yes. So you can blame Steve Allen on the bigger than a bread box thing. Where it came from before that, who knows? Maybe it probably was just sort of like something in, popular culture out there, and Steve Allen brought it to TV, which like broadcast it to lots of people. So, there you go, Steve Allen. Um, so,
So is it still relevant?
Sean, yeah, is it still relevant? What do you think? Bread boxes.
I lived with my grandmother for a couple years, and she had a bread box on top of her refrigerator. And then I moved into a place that the kitchen area had a little like a rolly window over a part in the cabinet that was for a bread box and toaster. So, I mean, I've seen bread boxes in 2 of the 4 places I've lived in my life.
I lived with my grandparents for a very long time, and we had a bread box that had bread in it, and I think we put like donuts in there as well. But those were obviously much more temporary because those would get eaten much faster than the bread. Um,
Oh, you have that problem
and
too.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I've had a bread box. Although you've only lived in 4 places in your life. I'm sorry, I just
1, 2, 5 places.
5. Not counting moving around dorms. Man, I'd have to count, but I think I've lived in like 14 or 15 places in my life.
5 places, and if you found like the 2 that were furthest apart, they would probably be less than 12 miles apart.
We are the total opposite. You've lived in 5 places and they've been less than a couple miles apart. I've lived in 15 places and the furthest apart is between Denver and Richmond. That's like, I don't know, 2,000
miles.
And also, I think, like, yeah, and obviously, since I've lived in so many places, the average time I've spent in a place is very short. I think it's getting close to. It'll be close to 2 years per place if I continue moving around, but before I'm 30.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
I can at least say that I've been to places. It's not like I've never left at all. I just haven't lived in other places.
I'm a transient kind of guy.
You're nomadic.
I am. So I don't have a bread box right now, and that's a shame. I think that. So do I think that the concept of a bread box is still relevant? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Does bread still get stale, Rod?
Yes. So first of all, I want to say this: if anyone out there keeps bread in a refrigerator, knock that out right now. You should be keeping it at room temperature and in a bread box, or at least in a cupboard or something. And the reason why is so I think people think bread going stale is that it's getting dry, but that's not what's happening at all. I might be blowing people's minds right now. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to figure out if I know what happens.
Bread going stale is a chemical process. The gluten starts turning into crystals, and and that is a process which happens faster in humid and cooler environments. So if you put bread in a fridge, it's going to go stale faster. Going stale is not getting dry. Stale bread and not stale bread weighs the same. It's just that the chemical components of bread have changed. It's crystallized.
Can I use those crystals for my lightsaber?
Potentially. Get a bread lightsaber? Maybe. We'll look into that. So a bread box is really convenient because you can keep bread at room temperature, and also mice can't get it. Because they can't get into the bread box. Like, that's why bread boxes exist. And
it's why they're usually like metal.
Yes. You don't want things to be able to get into the bread. You want the bread to be like out in the atmosphere and at room temperature, but you don't want it to be like, you want it to be exposed to air, and you don't want it to be critters to be able to like crawl all over your bread. So there you go. If you freeze bread though, that's different. You can freeze bread and then unfreeze bread, and it won't. That's not.
Yeah, I've done that. I've bought like a giant bag of discount buns like 2 days after they were supposed to be sold or something, and thrown it in the freezer, and then I use them. I thaw them out for like burgers.
Yeah, that's fine.
That
That's
totally works.
that is fine because now that everyone knows that it's a chemical reaction that's happening, if you freeze the bread, you're going to stop that kind of chemical reaction. So you can actually keep frozen bread for a very long time and it won't go stale.
Well,
If
tell
in
me
the
this, Captain Science. Alicia taught me a trick that I did not know before. She had cookies that she had made, and she put them in like a container with a lid. And when the cookies started going stale, she put in 2 slices of bread. And then the bread got really, really stale, and the cookies got softer.
Okay, I'm going to say one thing. I am immediately correcting something that while you were talking about, I was thinking about what I said. I said gluten. I didn't mean
We
gluten.
can't use crystals for the lightsaber.
Yeah, that's true. It's not the gluten. It's the starch. It's the starch that is changing into a crystal.
Okay.
Um,
Anyone
so
who just commented 3 minutes ago that you were wrong now needs to take back their comment.
all of the people who are like, oh, I know about the.
I know everything there is to know about gluten.
Exactly. You're completely wrong.
I'm
and
diabetic, so you're wrong.
all of our people who have PhDs in retrogradation. I think that's the name of the process that the starch undergoes. So I know that trick too. My grandma.
I love
used to
that
do
trick. I can't believe I didn't know that for over 20 years of my life.
I'm gonna look into that. I'm gonna say, I don't know.
It's
I
a
don't know.
phenomenon. I love it.
Well, because I don't think that cookies getting hard, I'm not certain
Different
that
process?
that is the same process.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that they might actually be drying out.
That would make sense.
And that the cookie and that the bread is and that, like what I'm thinking is if you like have a closed container, like the way that my grandma always used to do this, we had this like long awesome like 1960s teal container that we would put the cookies in. You put 2 pieces of bread in it, and I think that if I'm right, the cookies are drying, and that if you have the bread contains a lot of moisture, and that if you have a sealed, humid environment, that they will begin giving off that moisture a little bit, and then they might actually be drying out in that circumstance and going stale at the same time.
Okay.
But I'm saying I don't know. I'm gonna find out. We'll have follow-up next week. I will.
Carter's kitchen speculation.
Exactly. This is totally speculative. I'm not claiming like this is what's happening. I like for sure I know what's going on with bread and staleness, but like I don't. Cookies are totally different area of expertise.
Is this the first time we've ever talked about cookies on the podcast? It's possible.
Oh my goodness, I think you're right.
We're talking about cookies right now.
Yeah. I think that you mentioned the whole cookie thing in a video. The whole why people
say cookie.
Say cookie. I share a bit of responsibility for that.
I think you claim most of the responsibility for that.
I mean, it was popularized through other channels, but
I like that it gets over to other people's channels who don't have any idea why they're getting a cookie.
Maybe one day, if it continues its spread, there will be a popular culture bullet in the cookie page on Wikipedia about Shawn and Carter.
Or at least on Urban Dictionary. There's like a war on the doobly-doo page on Urban Dictionary over who came up with it.
Who created it? Who do you
Wheezy
think?
Waiter did.
It was not like Zay Frank or something?
No, it was definitely Wheezy Waiter, and then Vlogbrothers and a bunch of other people popularized it, but they all gave him credit, but sometimes, for some reason, the internet doesn't always.
So I'm on the Urban Dictionary page for cookie, and I just did a little Command F find YouTube, and I didn't see anything, so...
All right, so people need to get busy.
Yep. All right.
Some
we got a lot... I just want to say that this is super random, and I think that we're living up to random question time. And we have more. So, random question number 2. This one's easy. Will wants to know where we keep our docks on our Macs.
Where's your dock?
Where's your dock? And I mentioned to him on Twitter. Well, so he asked this. This was not a random question, but I made it a random question. He just wanted to know where I keep my dock on Twitter, and so I said we'll just answer it on the podcast. He thinks
obviously this is a topic for discussion.
Exactly. Well, it is a topic for discussion. But anyway, he thinks I keep mine on the left. Where do you keep yours, or where does Alicia keep hers?
Well, I saw this question on Twitter, and I said, "Where do you keep your dock?" And she said, "You can move it." And I said, "Yes, you can move it." And she was like, "Well, now I want it on the left." So she put it on the left. She did have it on the bottom just because that was the default. I haven't checked in with her to ask how it's going.
Would you have yours on the left?
I had one that came on the last Dell computer that I had. Now I have 2 monitors, so I don't have one anymore because I have so much more space. But I used to have one that I kept on the right because my desktop icons were on the left.
Got it.
There's no way in Windows to get it to align the icons to the right side automatically.
I think that's right.
So I didn't really care if it was left or right, but I wanted it on the side.
I think that's a huge plus of the, we're going to talk a lot more about user interfaces soon, but I think that's a huge plus of the Mac is that the desktop you can kind of make messy. Windows makes you put everything, it forces the icons into a grid without you knowing it. I think this is still true. This was true in XP. I haven't used Windows 7 in a while. Whereas on a Mac desktop, you can things can overlap, and they can kind of you can group things any way you want.
You can turn it off. I just turned it off. But it is turned on by default.
Okay. So for a while, I had mine on the right. I'll say that. I had my dock on the right for a while.
It felt okay. It was all right.
Yeah. Now I always have these ridiculous reasons, but the reason why I had it on the right is because I'm right-handed, and I felt that.
That doesn't sound ridiculous.
Okay, thank you. The motion of moving my cursor to the right felt more natural than moving it to the left. It felt like I was stretching my muscles when I was moving to the left.
It's like where you're gonna put your gun and reach for your holster.
Right. Exactly. So going to the dock is something you do a lot on a Mac, and I didn't want to get a repetitive stress injury or strain injury or whatever, an RSI, because I had my dock on the left instead of the right. Because I'm on a Mac right now. I'm sitting in front of a Mac, and I've got my right hand out on the trackpad, and moving to the right, it doesn't feel like I'm stretching anything. I use my middle finger to move my cursor around. Moving to the left, I feel a little tension in my forearm. So that's why I did it. But I don't keep it on the right anymore. I keep it at the bottom.
Why?
Couple reasons. One, that's where Apple thinks you should have it. So they've probably tried a lot of different areas, and I try to keep my Mac as default as possible. I don't have a ton of things that are not standard, and I like it. The other reason is because I'm on a 13-inch. I might change this if I was on a much bigger screen. I'm on a 13-inch MacBook Pro, and I want to have as much horizontal space, uninterrupted horizontal space as possible.
Do you have auto hide on?
No, I don't have auto hide on.
Do you have it have you shrunk the dock?
It's a little shrunk.
I scaled down Alicia's, and she liked it better.
It's a little shrunk. So the reason why I need all that uninterrupted horizontal space is because I deal in spreadsheets a lot, and I want to be able to see as many of the columns as possible. But I have made changes to the dock. One, I've turned off. I've actually made a lot of changes. And if you and Alicia don't know about this yet, you should Google secrets. Secrets is
Just Google the secret. That's what I'm looking for, right?
not the secret.
Self-improvement through, wait, what is this?
It's a preference pane in Mac. The secret has its own preference pane.
And Oprah's there.
And Oprah's there and everything. And Gail. Did you know that Gail is on Good Morning America now? Gail of the friend of Oprah.
No, I had no idea.
A host on Good Morning America.
Does she have any experience?
Apparently, she's awesome.
Oh.
I mean, so says my mom, but I mean.
Well, reality is perception.
That's right. So
she
secrets,
must be good.
If you Google like Mac secrets or whatever, you can download this. It's a preference pane. It will show up in system preferences in other, and it's really, really cool. So there are all these little like things that you can change about your Mac.
This sounds like UI tweaks for Windows.
It's probably the same thing, except that it's not just UI stuff. It's every application has little things that you can change that if you go in and edit the little plist files or whatever, you can change them if you know how to like go in and change the apps. Or you can download secrets, and it's like this nice little user interface to make those changes yourself.
Oh, sweet. I want it.
And people discover them, and they put them in a database, and secrets updates itself over the internet with new ones. And it's got like top secrets, funny, haha,
yeah.
the ones that are the most popular, and then and it groups them by like here are the little preference things you can change for like the system, address book, the calculator, dashboard, whatever. Like for instance, I have dashboard disabled entirely. So like if I scroll if I like do a 3-finger swipe to the right, it doesn't go anywhere, and I can't activate dashboard. So I do that so I can recover some of that RAM. So I've made a bunch of changes to the dock, both in the regular dock preferences and in using secrets. One, I changed the genie effect, the little like thing where like your window like scrolls down to the dock, like where like the dock like sucks it in.
Oh, right.
I have mine changed so that one, when I minimize windows, they don't go to the dock. They just go away. And there's no genie effect. They just like scale down very quickly, right down to the icon that they belong to. So if I have like a Google Chrome window open, instead of like down to the dock, they just kind of like disappear, and it looks like they're heading towards the icon for Google Chrome. I prefer that because I have a bajillion windows open, and I keep many of them minimized, and if I did that all the time, my dock would be giant. Also, I in secrets have turned off the like little 3D like shelf thing. I really don't like that. You can tell it to use the same UI for when it's on the left or the right hand of the screen, like that little, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a little white line that goes around it, and it's just kind of like black.
Oh, right.
No 3D effect. I prefer that greatly. So it looks like how it looks when it's on the left or the right, but it's at the bottom. And I also turn the scale effect off. I don't like that either. Where
you can turn it. You can at least. I think I scaled Alicia's way back. You can make it so it doesn't make them so big.
I made mine 0. I don't like that at all. There's also something you can do in Terminal. There's like there's no secret for this that I know of, but you can make it so that they become really giant, which is kind of hysterical. But like they take up like the entire screen.
It's like DK head mode on GoldenEye.
Oh God! Don't mention video games.
I'm doing it on purpose now.
Anyway, if anyone has a Mac out there and they don't know about secrets, you should check it out. It's great. A lot of good things that you can tweak on your Mac, and that's where I keep my dock, at the bottom, but with many changes. If I had to deal with the shelf, I would probably not keep it at the bottom. I really dislike that. I think it looks silly.
It could be a 3D carousel.
Didn't you say they got rid of that on the Kindle Fire? Is that still there?
It's there, but it's not nearly as glitchy as it was.
I
still don't even use it. You don't need to use it for most things.
It makes absolutely no sense. So, like, there is something very similar to that in iOS, and that's the multitasking bar. It's
Yeah.
just a running list of everything that you've opened most recently. And I think that that makes sense to like go back and forth between like the apps that you've used the very most recently, but to order your entire the entire way that you interact with your device is this most recent opened thing, that makes no sense to me. We got one more question.
Uno
That is,
mas.
one more question that is random. And that is also from Will, but this is his actual random question. He wants to know what skill that we don't currently have, uh, what we would like to have. And he had some parameters. It has to be like a real skill. Like you have to take time to learn it.
This
It has to be
isn't a
something
flight or
you do.
invisibility question.
No, this is not flight or invisibility. Like it has to be like a reasonable skill, something that we don't know how to do right now, that we would have to take time to learn. It's not like Neo plugging into the Matrix and it's like, I know Kung Fu. It's like you gotta, if you want to learn Kung Fu, you gotta like go through the like whatever.
Yeah.
And what would it be and why? He didn't say why, but I spent 3 years learning how to play the piano, and I got okay for my age. I think I was probably between the ages of like 11 and 14.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed it. And through a series of unfortunate events, I basically have forgotten how to play the piano. And you could set me down in front of a piano. I can read sheet music. I can play okay, but not really. You know, I have no real skill for playing the piano. I would like to learn how to play the piano, like successfully and for real, because
Do you play any musical instruments?
well, I mean, I played the saxophone for like 4 years. And like I said, I can like if you sat me down with some like basic sheet music, I could play a piano, and I can like mess around on a piano. I like got far enough into piano instruction that I know how how chords work and
Okay.
progression and stuff like that. But like I'm not great, and I certainly if you gave me here's the sheet music for some here's some Ben Folds song, I would be like, nope, can't do it. It's too fast. It's too fast. It's too many notes. It's too many, like I can't do it. And I was getting there, and then I quit basically. And I would like to have that skill because my family generally is very musical, and I feel like that is one area where I've let my entire family down.
Ooh.
Yeah, sorry, mom. My mom and my aunt. So my grandmother's two daughters were both very, very talented piano players, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's got really long fingers."
Oh my God, how many times did I hear that growing up?
Really long fingers, and he started taking piano when he was like 10 or 11 or whatever, and he was already messing around, when he was younger. He's gonna be such a great piano player, and then I failed everybody.
I started taking piano lessons when I was 5.
Oh man, I disagree with that style of teaching someone how to play the piano, though.
I took lessons from when I was like almost 6 until I was nearly 13. And then I quit of my own accord and said I want to play the drums.
It's still a percussion instrument, though.
And my neighbors never liked our house again. But anyway, I guess I need to demonstrate I need to mention my skill.
What skill would you like to have that you don't have right now?
I think an area of expertise that I've always been a little bit envious of is, and it's not just because you said Neo and Kung Fu, but martial arts in general. I would love to have had the time to train and learn some kind of martial arts skill. And not just the skill, but the discipline and everything. I think every time I see someone who's clearly versed in the philosophy and everything, I'm a little bit jealous because I wish I had gone through that.
Interesting.
Not to say I couldn't still, but it is quite a bit of time and effort you have to focus on something like that.
I think I'm with you there on that. Like one thing that I in the past couple of years have taken up is meditation, which particularly like an Eastern brand of meditation. So I think that that is tied up with a lot of Eastern martial arts, and it's been very helpful for my life. And I think that I'm thinking of eventually taking the next step and trying to get into a yoga practice, but I tried it in college, and it is to this day the one class I've ever failed.
What is that downward facing dog?
Downward facing dog, yeah. Sun salute. I went for the first class, and then I was like, nah, I can't do this. It's 4 hours from two. So this class was 4 hours long every Tuesday from like 6 to 10, and the school I went to, I went to George Washington University. There's a main campus right in downtown DC, and then there is a satellite campus like 5 miles away that you have to take a bus to, called Mount Vernon. And this was on Mount Vernon, and it's just like it takes like a while to get out there, so it's like you got to block out like 6 hours of your time on a Tuesday. And I'm like, I just can't do this. And then I forgot to drop the class, so I failed.
Oh jeez.
So
and that's how you reached your Zen state.
Exactly. And I didn't start doing this meditation thing until much later. I was like, this yoga thing sucks. And then like someone else separately introduced me to this really great book. By the way, I have made one, I would say one firm book recommendation on this podcast, and that's for the book Game Over, which I will say has the Ron Smalek seal of approval. He tweeted like as he was reading the book, and my impression is that he loved it. So I would continue to highly recommend it. The other book that I will recommend, if anyone is interested at all in sort of a very basic starter guide to like having a simple meditation practice, Mindfulness in Plain English is an amazing book. It's very short. It's available online as a free PDF. Just Google Mindfulness in Plain English.
It'll be in the info.
It'll be in the info. I'll send it to Shawn. It is a really quick read, and it is, I mean, even if you don't end up meditating at all, it's a very it's a very insightful piece, which is interesting because, there's a pun there because the style of meditation that it is teaching you is called insight meditation. So
I think meditation and the study of it and the behavior that it demonstrates in humans says a lot about our psychology, like the way it does work and what it does for people.
Man, we can't go down this path, but yeah, it really does.
we really can't.
We don't have the time to do this.
We have so many rabbit holes we need to keep dodging.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about meditation in the future, and I certainly have a lot of opinions about it and a lot to say about it, but and how it's like changed my life. But it's like also we don't have time. We need to talk more about user interfaces and stuff, which I think is of a piece though with my lame attempt at a segue.
There's a philosophy here.
Like dealing with the human cognitive architecture is something that user interface design is faced with, just as meditation is. It's just like one thing is very deeply personal, and the other thing is commercial and has advertisements and stuff.
So we've got these two videos that Carter found for us from Chris Pirillo.
Chris Pirillo.
Who is this guy?
Do you remember okay, so you know the channel G4?
Yeah.
Okay, so a very long time ago, G4 used to be called Tech TV. Do you remember that?
No, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, so if you were a real geek, especially if you were a PC geek, or a Linux geek, I guess, you may have watched Tech TV back in the day. And I used to be a PC geek. I used to be like a hardcore PC geek, and I hated Macs a long time ago. Tech TV was a horrible idea, and it eventually became G4 because G4 is a much better idea. Tech TV was like specifically a channel about technology, and as they started it started failing, and they started adding things to their programming lineup that wasn't just more geek oriented. They eventually realized, hey, we can make something out of this if this is sort of geek oriented programming, but it can't just be technology. So they rebranded themselves and they became Tech TV, and they got that hot girl who does Attack of the Show,
G4.
Olivia Wilde. G4.
Right.
Olivia Wilde or whatever. So Chris Pirillo used to have a show on Tech TV, and I think he also guested on a lot of other shows. Man, I don't remember. I don't have his Wikipedia up. I don't remember what it was called. It was a call-in show where you could like call in and say like, "Hey, I'm having this problem with my computer. Can you give me some advice?"
It was car talk for computers.
It was totally car talk for computers. That is a great analogy.
It was called Call for Help.
Call for Help. Thank you, Sean. It was called Call for Help. It was really great, and he was. I mean, back then he was a young guy. He's still a pretty young guy, but like back then he was in his, late 20s, and now he's getting closer to his late 30s. And he was a very engaging personality, and he obviously really liked talking and talking about technology. And when Tech TV kind of started to end, he moved his whole operation online, and he has a YouTube channel and a blog network called the Locker Gnome Network. It's a whole bunch of blogs, like technology-related blogs. And then he has a YouTube channel that has like, I don't know, like 5,000 videos. I think that his main site, he like edits a live stream that he does every single day.
Okay, I was wondering where these came from.
I think like 6 hours a day he has like a live stream where he like talks about whatever, and then he edits them down. He is
his own TV channel, basically.
Yeah, he made his own network, and is apparently very popular with his fan base. So, good on him. And like I really haven't been following him since Tech TV. Like every once in a while something will come up where like, oh hey, it's a Chris Pirillo video about the new iPad or whatever. He's a Mac aficionado, so
you wouldn't know it from these two videos that we're discussing.
That's true. That's true. He if you know him, you know that he likes Macs. But he has like Mac machines, PCs, Linux boxes, whatever. Yeah, a lot. He's just a technology enthusiast generally. But the two videos we're talking about are I would say they're very different for his channel, and they feature his father.
Oh man, his dad is so great.
His name is Joe Pirillo, and he's amazing.
He is the perfect candidate for this thing. What he does is he sits him down in front of a computer, and the first computer he does is a Windows 8 build with the new Metro style. And the version that we'll have linked here is just like the first 6 minutes or something of him with this Metro Windows, which he immediately gets out of. Like he clicks the icon to put him into the Explorer version. And then his son says, now get back to the Metro. And the next 5 minutes is just him staring at the screen.
Well, it's... He doesn't just stare at the screen.
He tries so many things.
He
explains his entire process. He's making a lot of sense, but he just can't find it again.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is if we're in a court of law where it's like, Mac versus PC and like my philosophy versus like other UI philosophies, and this is the evidence that I would trot out. Because this guy, Joe Pirillo, he is in both of these videos, they say that he's been using Windows XP for a very long time and he likes it. And
he doesn't need it to do anything else, so he's happy with what it does.
Right, and he's not a novice. He's not like someone who's never used a computer before. He's used a computer before. This is like your average everyday computer consumer. Joe Pirillo. Joe Pirillo is the person that we need to be making computers for. And I'm going to bring up something that we discussed 2 podcasts ago with Elaine in a little bit. But this is not like... this is not like me or Sean or probably the people listening to this podcast who are probably much savvier with computers than the average consumer, right? We know how to... We don't just like turn a computer on and go like, what do I do?
How do I get to the Google?
To the Google. Oh my God. He calls it the Google, which is amazing. Oh my God. So, but in the Windows 8 thing, he's trying, and he's actually doing some sophisticated things. He thinks like maybe there's like some screen corner thing that
Yeah,
I
he
need to get
takes
to.
many different approaches to it. It's clear that he's thinking this through every avenue he can think of.
And you know what this made me think of? It made me think of a command line interface, but updated like 25 years.
Uh-huh.
Because when if you're sitting down to a computer with a command line and it's got that little blinking little thing where it's like, tell me to do something, I felt like this guy felt the same way with this graphical user interface. He's looking everywhere like, I want to tell you to do something, but I don't know how to do it.
He didn't know
Like,
to type win.
right. He tried everything. He's like, do I click on this, click on that? Do I go to the screen corner, go to that screen corner, try to open these things? And completely unsuccessful. Just couldn't do it. Just could not get back to. And Bobby can answer this for us. I think that what he needed to do was a gesture. Is that true?
I think you're right. There's something about a hidden start menu button.
I think that what he needed so Windows 8 has these things called charms, and they're like little. I don't know how to describe them. They're little.
This is how we're working in St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, right. I'm wearing green today. And I think that like charms are kind of like little settings or things that applications can do. I'm describing this very poorly, and that they live in like a little kind of like shelf off to the right hand side, and that if you like swipe in from the right, it like pulls that shelf out.
Oh, okay. Yes, I've seen that. I have seen that demonstrated.
I think even from the desktop, you can do that.
So
Bobby,
that is like the one thing that bridges all the different interfaces you're going to look at in Metro, is that thing that pulls out.
I think that's right. I think that
that makes sense for a tablet, for a OS you're going to put on a tablet.
Yeah, totally. And I think that but once again, I'm just gonna like call on Bobby because he seems to know a lot about Windows 8. But if anyone else knows about this, you can feel free to correct me. I think that the gesture controls work throughout the entire Windows 8 environment. Like I think you like swipe down to like close apps. Like there's like different swipes that you can do coming from the trackpad or from the bezel if you're on a tablet. And I think that what he needed to do was like some sort of swipe from the right, and then it would have brought that thing over. But like the UI and the OS offered him no help. It was a brand new. It was a whole new Windows 8 machine.
Right. It was a brand new install that no one had touched yet.
And he went to they call it the desktop, which looks like Windows 7. And it gave him no help to get back to the Metro part of it.
Which seems to be its main, like, it's supposed to be the main feature.
Right, that's crazy. I think that, and where it's really crazy, and this is Windows' problem, this is Microsoft's problem, is that I bet on a tablet, you'd be able to figure that out more easily.
I think you're right. Like I said, if it's a gesture-related thing, you're pulling something in from the edge. That's something that people are getting pretty used to with phones and tablets.
Yeah, and I think that you would spend more time in the Metro part of the OS. And see, it's hard for me not to criticize Microsoft on this because I really think that they're not doing this correctly. I think that the way that Apple is doing this with two different but related operating systems seems to make more sense, and I think Joe, as the everyday consumer, confirms this for us in the next video. But like having that same OS on a computer is confusing. Like, why would you think you would need to do some sort of swipe from the right to get to this particular part of the UI? I don't think that makes much sense, and obviously Joe didn't, because he literally could not figure out how to get back to the Metro start part of that. Is there a name for that? I don't even know what it's called.
I don't know what it's called.
The start area.
The tiles. The boxes.
He calls it the boxes. How to get back to the boxes? He couldn't figure it out. And at the end of the video, he says, "Who's putting this out there?" And Chris says, "Microsoft." And Joe says, "What? They trying to drive me to the Mac?"
So people commented on this video and was like, well, this isn't fair. If you put him down in front of a brand new Mac machine, he'd be just as lost. So a couple days later, that's exactly what Chris did. He put him on the same computer with a brand new OS X install. And this video will also be in the info. It is a half an hour. I watched every second of this video, and it was fascinating.
It was utterly fascinating. It's OS 10, by the way, Sean.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Get my branding right.
Come on. It was fascinating. The stars aligned on this one that Chris Pirillo, a technology enthusiast with a fairly large audience who wanted to do this comparison, happened to have a father who is just the coolest guy
He's
ever.
the perfect lab rat for this.
So
he knows just enough that it's not dull, but he knows he's missing enough crucial information to do things like call Google the Google.
Like, yeah, the Google, like the MTV or, you know, the Pokemon. Also, like, go watch these videos, but like in this second one, the Mac one, he's wearing this Hawaiian t-shirt and this multicolored hat with a propeller on the top of it. He's just like amazing. I love this guy. He needs his own show. He really does. The Joe Pirillo show.
I think it could happen. The internet could make that happen.
It could totally happen.
So he spends half an hour putzing through these programs, and his son is asking him like what he's recognizing and where he's recognizing it from. And the thing that his dad boils it down to is he's recognizing all these icons even though he's never used Mac OS before. He's recognizing them from his iPhone experience or his iPad experience. And he just starts opening things and going through this and putting stuff together like it's absolutely no big deal, even though he's never used these applications or this operating system before.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest problem he had was getting to the Google, and he immediately recognized that Safari was the internet, because on an iPhone and on an iPad, it's the same thing.
And he ran across a problem that I didn't even know existed, that Google has removed all the links back to Google from all of their applications. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did not know that. So at the top left of every Google product, there is generally a little icon.
An icon that says Google.
And you used to be able to click on that, and I'm with him on this. I thought that you could just click on that and go back to the Google homepage, but apparently you can't do that
He
anymore.
would have been there much faster if that had worked.
Right. I don't remember what he did, but he got to like Google Maps, and then he was like lost in Google Plus for a while. This is all like, I would say that this
now
is
we're going to
Google's
move into
fault.
why this is a Google problem.
This is a Google problem, not a Joe Pirillo problem. But what he ends up doing is what I think a lot of people do, and this is where I'm going to bring back what we were talking about a couple weeks ago with Elaine. I think a lot of people do this. They know that you go to Google to like search for things.
Right.
And they need to be at Google. So what he did was he was in Safari, and in the Google search bar, he typed in Google to get to Google. He used Google to Google Google. He Googled Google, and then he was like, I'm
That's like
here.
falling into a black hole. You got to be careful with that.
There's a bag of holding involved. It's very complex. So that was the thing that took him the longest amount of time. But then, yeah, you're right. He was just putzing through the operating system.
Like he opened the dashboard and got over to where the widgets were, and just without even like Chris didn't say anything to him. He didn't say what he was doing. He just started rearranging the widgets, and he's like, well, obviously these, like he just started assigning order to things. And then as soon as he was done with it, his son was like, now get back to the thing. And he was like, well, here's an arrow, and he clicked it, and he's back on the regular desktop.
Yeah, and there are some really critically important design elements of the Mac OS that I think are just so... Watching this video of someone who's never used it before and who is definitely not an expert computer user, but who like knows what a computer is, it just shines why I prefer this operating system for consumers. So the big, like one of the biggest thing the things is that when he finally got Google up, he minimized the window and he saw the genie effect. The window like going down to the dock, and then he said, "Oh, that's great. I know where that is because I saw it go to the dock, and I can go back there." Whereas if, like, in Windows, it just, like, if you minimize it, it goes away. And it's at the bottom,
And
right?
it's hidden behind something.
Right, it's at the bottom. I mean, this is somewhat less of a problem in Windows 7 and 8 in the, when you're in the desktop in Windows 8. But, like, when you minimize something, there's no visual indication of where it's going, and you just sort of have to know what icon it's associated with. Whereas on OS X, it does this by default. You can change them, like I have, if you're an expert. But if you're a novice, the default is it shows you, here's your thing, and there's where it's going. And you can, like, visually I know that's where it went. And I think that a lot of expert computer users who dislike this operating system, they're like, oh, it's all showy and candy, and it's like, all this eye candy, and like it's using all my graphical resources for like stuff that I don't really care about. Like, why is it doing all these transitions and like all this animation? But like for people like Joe who are not an expert, it's so helpful for them.
Right.
It is so incredibly helpful for them. The other thing that I thought was brilliant is he was using a new Mac that had Lion on it, like your and Alicia's Mac.
Right.
He eventually found Launchpad.
Yes,
and
he did.
This is huge. This is really huge. So before Lion, there was the dock and everything else. And everything that was in the dock it's always there, and it's easy to get to. It's very visual. And then once you get past that, you have to use the Finder and find your applications folder. This is a bigger task than I think a lot of people think it really is for novice computer users. Would you say that that's fair?
Yeah, going into the hard drive to locate a file.
Yeah, I mean, especially because the hard drive is not mounted on the desktop by default.
Right.
So you have to go to the Finder. If you don't use a Mac, you guys are probably a little lost right now. I'm so sorry.
You're like, what? Just open my computer.
Right. Well, like the way that Windows gets around this is that everything is in the Start menu. But still, you have to go to the Start menu, and then you have to go to Programs, and then that's where everything is. And even there, you can run afoul, because when you install something on a Windows machine, it says, do you want this to be in the Start menu or not? And I think most programs have that checked by default because they
have it like they have it for the Start menu, the desktop, and the Quick Launch Bar. They're like, can we infest your computer with this program?
Put it everywhere.
Can this program be a scourge on your hard drive?
Right. And in terms of like UI choice, it's really silly. So let me ask you, does Alicia have many or any programs or applications on her desktop?
None.
To launch? None. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4. They're all games. Because that's the most convenient place to have them. They're all Steam games, and that's important because Steam by default is like I'm gonna put them in your applications folder, obviously, but like you probably want them on the desktop, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I want them on the desktop. Everything else, I've got a couple folders. I have an alias to I didn't even notice this until right now. I have an alias to an application that I keep in my dock, and I'm just going to drag to the trash right now because I don't use that. And then just a couple files, and that's it. All of my applications are either in the dock, or obviously if they're not in the dock, then they're in my applications folder. Lion adds this separate thing called Launchpad, which looks like iOS. It totally looks like iOS when you launch it.
It's just
bunch of
bubbly
tiles.
icons on a fuzzy background.
Exactly. And it's, I think this is where the Mac is going to start heading. Because when Joe opened Launchpad, which is in the dock, now if you're an expert user, you know you can. There's a gesture to open Launchpad, and there's a button on the, I think F4 brings up Launchpad. But he was just clicking through everything, and he's like, there's something with a rocket ship on it. It's called Launchpad, and he accurately predicts, I bet that's for launching apps. And it is. And then he's like, oh, this is where all of the applications are.
Right.
Like the dock is where,
And
like,
I went through this exact same experience in the first, like in the unboxing of the laptop. I was like, what is this thing? And I clicked on it and I was like, oh, there are all the apps. Then the next time I installed an app, I was like, well, where do I go? Oh, well, that thing that had all the apps. And I opened it and there it was.
exactly.
It took me like 5 minutes to figure, not even 5 minutes to figure it out, identify it, and then from then on know that that's where everything went.
Exactly. So John Gruber, of Daring Fireball fame, he thinks that this is eventually going to be this will replace the desktop on a Mac, and
Makes
this
sense.
is where I think Elaine will go crazy. 8-bit Dame. We were talking about abstraction increasing over time, and we were talking about like how old people and young people interact with technology. When Joe opened Launchpad, he was like, this makes sense. This is like an iPad. It's a bunch of little icons, and they're things that let me do things, and I just click on them, and they open up, and then I can start doing things. Whereas in older versions of the operating system, you need to know more about how the operating system works. Like you were talking about how the Mac makes it really easy to install a program from the internet.
Yeah. It's a disk image.
Right, and you drag it into your applications folder.
Yep.
If you use the App Store, you don't have to do that. You say, I want this app, and it goes into Launchpad. And it's like, I'm downloading it, I'm done, you can click on me. It's just like downloading an app on an iOS device. And Apple is really, really encouraging people to use the App Store. And I think we're going to get to a place where most applications will be fine on the App Store, and sort of expert level apps that, kind of do things that a normal user wouldn't necessarily need to do or want to do, you can still download off the internet and you can get on your computer just fine if you know more about it. But for most people, it's just going to be like, I go to the App Store, I download an app, it goes to Launchpad, I click on it, it opens. I get to do stuff. I get to manipulate. I get to like make a collage of my grandkids and send it through mail to all my friends, and they all love it and it looks great. And already Joe the also, come on, his name is Joe. He's like the everyman. Joe gets to like do all these things that if he was trying to do it on an XP, he wouldn't on Windows XP, he wouldn't be able to do. I think it's pretty clear that he is able to do all of the things he needs to do on his Windows XP machine and nothing else.
He doesn't know what he's missing.
Exactly. And here's the really critical thing. He has an iPad and an iPhone, and he loves them, and they make sense to him. And then when he comes to a Mac running Lion, he's like, this reminds me of my iPad, which is so easy to use. And it not only it gives him confidence, It gives him like, oh, I know how to do this. This is easy. Computers aren't scary. Computers are things that we use to make things. It's just like everything. Like for someone who's a Mac enthusiast, because they want people to be able to use computers to like do amazing things, that video is like everything we want to see. Just like, yes, don't you see why we encourage this? And also, it doesn't hurt that this guy is like the boss.
Yeah. He's great to watch.
So I would like to own up and say that I made a mistake in the order of the videos.
Gasp.
Sorry. I didn't include the To the Arc video for entry 12. That was a response to it in last week's set.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
This week's set.
I gotcha.
So Impurity is the first video that I had assigned. It should have been in the week before.
Okay.
Because
their responses.
Yeah, especially in this season, the response is like, it's like the video, the response, the video, the response, and I like messed that up. I apologize. Other than that, I thought that this was a really great. I think we're really getting into like more fun stuff with Marble.
Yeah. Let's. I think we can probably talk in broad strokes. I think we've seen. Well, now we've seen the introduction of Jay. We find like this is the first time we've had his name. We've seen him on camera. We've heard him on camera. We've heard him in present day, quote unquote, like as it was being released. Because he went looking for. He's now decided that he's going to try and find Alex.
Yes. So, as the weeks have gone on, I'd say the first week that we spent, that was sort of like something's happening. We don't know what it is. It involves this creepy guy and Alex. You know, it's just like, ooh, what's happening?
Yeah.
The second week was, all right, we know it's this film project. You know, we're starting to learn some of the rules about like the visual tearing on the videos, and like, yeah, this project went awry, and I think that this narrator is trying to explain this to us, and I'd like to know more about this.
I think that this movie would have sucked if it had been finished.
Clearly, but really also giving us a lot of also in the first 2 weeks, we're like getting editorial content from this narrator. Like, who the hell is this guy? And now finally we're like, okay,
this is the guy.
Here's the guy, and I think that in this group of videos we start to understand like the mission that he's set out ahead of himself, especially in like the final videos that we watched this week.
Yeah. He okay, so he initiates his search. I checked the dates just because I was curious. This video series started in June. So yes. It took 5 months for him to get from I found these videos and there's weird stuff on them to I need to find Alex.
Yes. Yes.
So what does he think he's going to find? And also, why doesn't he have his phone number or Facebook page or something?
Right. Well, we know that a lot of time has passed. Like 3 years have passed.
Yeah, now we're on 3 years and change.
Yeah. And I think that I actually wrote down... I have so many notes on this. I wrote down one of those title cards... I have to find Alex. I just can't find it in my notes. Anyway, he says like I have to find Alex at some point. I think that, and we're like next week things are really gonna start like exploding. I think that it's really clear that. There must be something going on. Well, not just for that reason, but there must be something going on with Jay.
He seems very involved.
Yes, like, and I will say, he wants to find Alex. Why?
Unfinished business.
He's hacking and coughing in the videos where he's involved. The interview with the actor Tim.
Yep.
That he finds, and then also he's like, when he investigates this house, which is very clearly Alex's house, I think, he's just like hacking and coughing the whole time, and he actually falls to the ground, like in a coughing fit, like something's going on there, and this is where the To the Arc videos start becoming really interesting. Whoever To the Arc is, they were following Jay not only during the shoot, because there is
the video of the guy going to the car to get a camera.
Yeah, exit, which followed entry 13. But then To the Arc also recorded a response addition to entry 16, which shows that whoever this person is, they were behind Jay when he fell to the ground in Alex's house.
Right.
And that's 3 years difference, by the way.
Yeah.
3 years. So this person To the Arc they either were following Jay 3 years ago or they had footage of it.
Yes.
For some reason. Doesn't mean that, like, if we're right from last week that To the Arc has access to, or at some point had access to this footage, maybe they have just kept it and they found something of Jay from a long time ago, or they were following him for some reason. I'm like, I don't know. Those questions I don't think ever really get satisfactorily answered, but like there are a ton of questions about like who is this person? Like they're obviously like stalking Jay or like giving him clues, or I don't even know. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy?
Well, there's this guy on the To the Arc, one of the videos. It's on the one called Exit. I think he has it figured out. We've mentioned already that the comments have all been removed and they're not allowed on the Marble Hornets page. But on the To the Arc channel, there are comments. The top comment here is, because he's figured it out, I'm watching a video of a guy watching another guy who's making videos about watching a guy's videos who's being watched by another guy.
It's true.
So he's got it.
That's true. And I think that comment is also on the right track about like some of the themes of Marble Hornets is that
I bet David Lynch would love this.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, I'm sure of it. But that comment is on the right track on one of the main themes of Marble Hornets, and that's voyeurism.
Right.
And we are all voyeurs in this performance. We are all watching these things unfold. So we should feel uncomfortable when, and I think we do, I think we all do, when To the Arc or whomever lifts up the covers on this voyeurism.
Right. When
like they're showing, you know, hey, I'm watching Jay. It's like, yeah, we're also watching Jay. You get some distance. It's weird. You get a little bit of distance because we're watching it through the camera, but it doesn't change the fact that we're like a stalker.
Right. Right.
Basically. And also I just think that this week we start really getting some interesting stuff. The house and Jay's
that
investigation
video,
of the house.
that 8-minute video inside the house is probably the first time that I felt pretty anxious from one of the videos. Like I didn't know what was going to happen, and if there were any cuts throughout that video, they were very well hidden, and I felt nervous the whole time.
Yes, that was my final note on it, was that there was, like, somehow they kept incredibly high tension throughout the entire video, and there was no operator, there was no anything.
No effects, nothing.
No effects.
No sound removed or distorted.
No, the only thing I'll say about the sound was, you might have some insight on this, Shawn, because, you're a video maker. I thought that before Jay entered the house, that there was like sort of amazingly good diegetic sound. The outdoor sound sounded great, and I'm wondering if they like added that after.
It may have been post.
It was like crickets or something. It just sounded really great, and it didn't sound like something that a camera could have, like with a camera mic, could have picked up. But it really did sound great. That video, entry 16, that's a great video. It is literally 8 minutes of someone walking around a house, and you can't take your eyes off of it.
I think the reason that it initially got me like involved was I was like, wait, why is he breaking into the house? Like all of a sudden I was like, well, he's even if like there's not spooky things involved, he could get in really big trouble right now. I'm like worried that the neighbors are going to see a flashlight around this house and call the cops.
Right? Yeah, that's true. There are multiple...
Officer Operative is here.
Yeah, no, that's true. There are multiple potential sources of a threat, right? It could be the spookiness, or it could just be like random people who are like, "Why are you breaking into somebody's?"
Yeah, he was really determined to get in there. He wasn't going to let anything stop him.
Yeah. Right. So we got to bring this up. Entry 14. Entry 14 is the one where Alex is sitting on the floor and the operator comes into his room.
Right.
And then many minutes pass, and then he changes the film, and he's just covered in blood.
I think this is the most we've ever seen of the operative, and I think it's the most we've ever seen of something. Is this the first time we've ever seen blood on a character?
I think so. Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
In 16, when Jay is walking around, it looks like a murder scene in the bathroom. There's blood on the floor, and then the sink is just like coated in blood.
Yeah, like someone vomited blood or something.
Right. I don't know if that's related to, because like the timeline is still so unclear. I don't know if that's related to what happened in Entry 14, but like I think that Entry 16, when Jay is walking around the house, is still much more tense than 14 when the operator comes into Alex's room. But then when we get that reveal that just like Alex is covered in blood, it's like, oh my god, like what happened here?
But nothing to comment on it, of course. Alex just sits and stares.
Well, and then he does one thing which I really liked. He spikes the camera right at the end. He looks right into the camera right at the end.
Yeah.
Like his watch goes off, he starts changing it, and then he looks right at you as the thing ends. I thought that was excellent. And it's little things like that. Well, I think that if you're like just watching these videos casually, you might think that anyone could do this. But I think that there are so many very subtle things that make this so excellent that obviously took a lot of time to think through and prepare.
Get all the perfect shots and perfect angles.
Yeah. I mean, like,
I'm sure that tour through the house was not a 1 minute take. But like I said,
no way.
there are so many places to hide a perfect edit. That's what I'm sure they did. And they were perfect.
They were perfect. Yeah, totally. I mean, this week's videos also had a really great scare when the first time we see Jay out in the woods, Alex goes out and he comes back around this structure, and then there's the operator just sort of like appears like right at the end of the video around a corner.
Yeah.
Very well timed. And what I would like to know is like how many times they had to film that, you know?
I was wondering that myself on a few of them, because their timing almost seems accidental, and you have to try to make it look accidental.
Right. That's the.
So kudos.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. That is.
And in case you missed it in the comments, apparently it looks like the third season of Marble Hornets has started. It looks like it started when we posted last week's episode.
I think they started in response to us.
I can only hope.
Yeah. If you didn't know, Entry 53 is up. And by the way, yes, we are talking about Entry 7. Our last entry this week was 17, so they're quite a ways down this path.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Main season. We're getting there. We're gonna. Oh man, I haven't decided if we're gonna finish this first part next week or split it up, but we'll see. I'm
I'm in the mood for a bigger chunk. I'll say that.
All right, all right.
I'm gonna bite
Do
off
it.
more this week.
We'll do it. So I'll just say this right now. I'll send Shawn all the links, but we're gonna finish the first season next week. So you might have a lot. You might have a bit to watch, especially because some of the videos are longer. We'll finish the first season with quotation marks around it next week, so we can start diving into the second season the week after that.
Awesome, awesome.
I'm excited.